All right, grown-ups, it's just our time. I love the babies, but to help you, I gotta speak my mind. This segment's here to help you grow with book reviews, lessons, and things you'll be glad to know. If your little one's restless or looking to play, send them to my other playlist. The read-alouds there will brighten their day. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Teacher Lady Show. Thank you for joining us for Behind the Book, where we go beyond the pages to get to the heart of the story. I'm Miss Erica, the Teacher Lady, your fairy godparent when it comes to sharing joyful stories and growing young minds. Now, all this week, we are bringing light to differences and disabilities. We are celebrating them. We are teaching children to be more understanding and empathetic to the differences that are around them. And of course, we are using picture books to be able to do so. Okay. So in today's Behind the Book review, we have all the way to the top the story of Jennifer Keelan and how her determination to change the world has made an impact on so many people. If you have not done so, be sure to check out the read aloud first and then come right back here for today's review, where we will be going over the glows, what I think was done well, the grows, what I think could have been done a little bit differently, who this book is for, how to utilize it as a resource to have a more robust conversation with your little, and more, all on this episode of Behind the Book on the Teacher Lady Show, where we go beyond the pages to get to the heart of the story. You ready? Let's grow. Summary in my own words. Jennifer is a child with cerebral palsy who is in a wheelchair, and she very quickly notices that her wheelchair cannot go where other people go. And she is frustrated with the limitations put on her by society, by the lack of access, and just overall being able to navigate her space. As a result, she turns activist, and baby, when I tell you she climbed up them stairs on that Capitol in order to change the law so that she could get access to buildings and public spaces, that's exactly what she did. So it is a story of a girl who is an activist, a young activist at that, who is determined to make life better for her and for people in her situation. Take home message and was it clearly communicated to the target audience or age group. So the take home message is one of perseverance, one of self advocacy, and overall activism. The book definitely shows that Jennifer was tired of being mistreated. She was tired of being excluded and counted out, and she made sure that her voice was heard and known in order to enact change. Okay, so that is the take home message. If you see a problem, fix it. Self advocate, speak up for those around you who don't have that same voice, and make sure that you are doing your part to create spaces that include everybody. That is really the take home message of the story. In terms of age group, the book states ages 4 and up, and that part I wouldn't agree with. I think that this book is best suited for children 7 years old and up. The book is extremely complex. It talks about the American with Disabilities Act. And because of all the layers of the story, I believe the book is most beneficial for neurotypical children 7 years old and up. Now, I say that because if your child is 7 years old, but of course they have a difference, like we're talking about all this week, then this might not be the best story for them. But for the most part, 7-year-olds will be able to benefit from the information in this book. Who could benefit from adding this book to their library? The first I would say is definitely educators. It's one of those books that you can have on your shelf as a teacher to start to inform children with, knowledge and history on what it means to have a disability, on some of the laws that had to get changed. I also think that it's a valuable resource for encouraging children to get serious around whatever it is that angers them, whatever it is that frustrates them. The activism piece of this book is so powerful. There are a lot of different pieces of this book that hold power, but the activism piece, the I'm not going to let the world just do this to me, to my friends. I'm going to do something about it is super important. And so that works definitely for classroom libraries. I would also say if you have a child that is passionate about something, they have a frustration or upset, and they want to see what it looks like to take initiative, this would also be a great resource. And lastly, if you have a child who is in a wheelchair who often feels stuck, they often feel excluded, they often have the frustrations of having to wait for the next elevator or possibly not be able to get onto the on ramp, even with the ADA passing. I mean, here in my studio, we don't have an elevator. And so if you have a child that is still dealing with these frustrations, having this book as a resource to say there are people who are fighting for you, there are people who are trying to change things for you is so special. I know for me, whenever I learn about an activist who is fighting for the things that would benefit and help me, it just makes me feel really seen and appreciated. And I imagine it would be the same for your child. Glows and what I think was done well. The first glow is definitely the illustrations. I greatly appreciate the pictures in the book. I love how bright the pages are. I love how detailed they are. And I love how we get such a clear picture of who Jennifer is by way of visuals. To that second glow, I love the character Jennifer, who is an actual person, right? This is based on a true story, so she didn't write the book, but she was featured and has given her permission for the book to be created. So I really appreciate that. But I really love seeing this person kind of go through the motions of having a disability and trying their best to make this world as special as possible for all people. I feel like highlighting her and making her the center of the book instead of it strictly being inspired by her really went a long way. And then my last glow is in the back of the book, specifically for, I would say, like educators or parents who want to learn more. There is almost like this mini encyclopedia that goes over all these different details. In the back, you have the road to the top. And you have these different sections like what is a disability, access for everyone, fighting for rights, we will ride, the Capitol crawl. You have a picture of Jennifer the day that she climbed up the stairs at the Capitol. You have life before and after the ADA, and then you also have a biography as well as a timeline. So again, there's a lot of information in the back of the book. I do think for the adults in their lives, getting that information and then giving it out in a way in which young children can understand, extremely powerful. In terms of growth for the story, some of the wording can be a bit hard to understand and follow for a young child. And so, specifically understanding the value and the impact of her climbing up the stairs, I felt like got a little muddy. It was so focused on the protests and the activism that when I read this book to students, we often have to discuss why it was such a big deal that she climbed up those stairs, right? That she climbed up the stairs because in order to get her voice heard, they put the mic at the top. And if you can't walk, you can't just walk up those stairs. And they didn't even have another way to get her up there. And so she climbed up those stairs and what that means and what that looks like. So some of the wording, and I'm just going to read an example so you get a better picture, can get a little lost without additional direction. She slides out of her wheelchair, scoots along the sidewalk to the bottom of the stairway, and puts her hands on the first step. She hauls herself up. Tiny bits of dirt, rock dig into her skin. She drags herself up another step. The crowd roars. Reporters surround her with cameras. I'll take all night if I have to. She keeps heaving, hauling, dragging herself up the steps. My children have no idea why she's climbing up those steps. None. My students really struggle to instantly understand that she is climbing up the steps because of all of these reasons. And so there's almost this disconnect between what it is she's doing and why it is she's doing it. And sometimes when we write books, we write them from the lens of assumption. And I think that kind of happened with the story a bit, that there were things that the writer assumed that the reader would know. And so some sections got muddy. Overall, though, with conversation, with add-in from a parent or clarification from a teacher, the child will definitely understand the story because the pictures also do a great job of adding to it. It just might need a little bit more support. So, excellent job, excellent story, and I really appreciate having this as a resource. Discussion points to have with your child. The first is, why did Jennifer climb up the Capitol steps? Like, why was that so important? Why did it take so much work and effort? Because that's such a centerpiece of the story, making sure to hold room for a conversation and a discussion around activism and around self advocacy is absolutely important and crucial. And I feel like the meat of the book. So that is definitely one discussion point that I would hold. Another one is, if your child is not in a wheelchair, I would really ask them, like, what does it mean to be in a wheelchair according to this story? What were some of the challenges that were faced? And what do you think we can do as a society to make sure that those challenges are not still here? I feel like the best way to build empathy and connection with children is to put them in the shoes of the person in which we're trying to get them to better understand. And so if your child is not in a wheelchair, fine, but really go through, like, what are the day-to-day things that we don't really have to think about? When we go to open a door, we can just swing it open. When we are going to use the bathroom, we can just kind of walk in and do what we need to do and wash our hands. How does that change if we are now wheelchair bound? And so having those conversations, having conversations around respect and being allies and being kind, I think are all valuable discussion points when it comes to this book. But overall, wheelchair aside, man, to have such a young person self-advocate and protest and demand change is extremely inspiring, and I would encourage you to utilize it as a resource to open up similar conversations with your own child and their own passions and the things that they hope to change within their worlds. Maybe that's a protest, maybe it's being more organized within their bedroom space. Either way, utilizing this as almost this roadmap to better understanding your child so that you can support them on a different level is extremely valuable. Final thoughts. Wow, this is definitely a book of disability activism, like in action to the umpteenth degree. It's definitely a book that is inspiring, that shows that you might have limitations, physical limitations, hardships, so on and so forth, but that does not mean you cannot figure out how to do the best that you can with the resources that you have. I'm so grateful for this resource, and I encourage you to check it out. If you do not know, I am also an author and an illustrator. Please go check out my work. One of those books being More Than a Wheelchair, which is also featured this week. The Read Aloud and the Behind the Book are now available. And on Friday, we have the Teacher Lady Speaks, which is a crash course on differences and disabilities in regards to students. So go ahead and check that out on Friday. Lastly, I want to bring your attention to the Empathy Library, which is a pay it forward initiative. You donate what you can. We're able to purchase books for children in need, and they get to receive them free of charge to them. So much to explore. Join the newsletter. Check out the Empathy Library. Go look at my books. Go listen to a read aloud. So much to do. I thank you for being part of this book loving community. I am here to support you. Drop a comment. And until next time, remember to enjoy the moment or go be a joy in the moment. Bye.